Hold on. Hold on. Is my mic working? All right. Getting Scottie Pippen text. That must be Michael. Yeah. We good?
Yeah, we're good.
5, 4.
3.5, 2.5, 1.5.
Let us heads. We are back with another episode of Please Let Us Golf, the podcast. Tonight you got Goldie, you got Golfberg. We're taking a pretty interesting little topic here. As always, never know what to name it until after we finish the episode. But we started flirting with the idea of, like, what is Please Let Us Golf? You know, people have asked, the Let Us heads have asked, you know, what is the background? How did this start? But it led us to a bigger conversation too, right? Of like this whole Wizard of Oz, pull the curtain back. What does it even look like to start a golf social media brand, a alternate golf media company, a YouTube golf company? We've gone through an absolute crash course of what it really looks like, and I think we can deep dive like our story and then some details. So a little tease of what the primary part of the episode is going to be. But we got Golfberg here tonight, coming fresh off of his Thanksgiving travels. A little Vegas golf, I hear. How we doing? Did we survive Thanksgiving?
Yeah, we survived. We survived Thanksgiving. We had some sickness infiltrate the family, so it was one of those super fun weekends.
Tummy bugs.
Yeah, but we don't want to dwell on that. From a golf standpoint, we had some great golf at Red Rock, up in the Red Rock Mountains in Vegas. The weather is absolutely perfect down there. Low 70s, high 60s, a little bit of wind. Pop G was on fire, hitting shots when it mattered. We played Uncle Rick, who is an uncle by heart more than
not by blood,
if that makes any sense. Yeah, not by blood, but one of my favorite
no
people
blood
ever.
at all.
No blood. But we had to take them on, and we beat them down pretty good. So that felt good. That made Pop G happy.
Yeah, I saw a couple swings that you sent me from Pop G, man. How's it still slotted like that? How
He
old's
looks
Pop
so
G
healthy.
now?
Like
Yeah, it's crazy.
75.
Man, it's crazy. I think when you just don't eat like a dipshit, you really can do some things in your 70s. I got to take note.
They're all just one little fall away from everything being over, though. So we're skating a thin line. We just gotta get him out of this. He's in a death trap of a golf cart too. I'm gonna post some stuff on that pretty soon here.
Yeah,
he's ride or die literally daily at the country club.
Yeah, he needs a governor on that thing. That's for sure.
Yeah,
yeah,
play some good golf too. Not to dwell too much on that, but I was one swing away from shooting 2 under on the front, and instead I shanked a shot on the 9th hole. And I haven't shanked a shot in a round in I don't know how long. And then I shanked one on 10.
Hell yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. But then somehow I was able to just chill out and bust out of that. But what a world. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah. You gotta love when the shank creeps up, but at least you got some good. I mean, hey, you're in the PNW. You got down to Vegas. You got some good 70s fall golf, approaching winter golf. You can't really beat that.
Yeah, it was a treat.
Then you had the tummy bugs. Yeah, I did I don't even like to say I survived Thanksgiving. It was fun with the in-laws. They're great. Extended family. Everyone's got kids now, so it's wild as shit. Saw Moana, had to do
we
that.
Did too.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, not as good as the first, but saw that. I was on about a 2-week golf hiatus from last time I touched my clubs were Old Barnwell for full swings. Went out there yesterday, couple buckets, didn't get past an 8-iron. I was grinding, but towards the end, it felt competent again. So, but yeah, I definitely, we're in a cold spell though here. We're in the Southeast, got a little early winter this week, but I think by next week it's supposed to warm back up. So hopefully get some winter rounds in.
But because you got to keep chipping away.
You got to. Well, it's just, man, it like I was talking to Adam, golf's so hard. Like, it's like 2 weeks and it doesn't take long to get it back when but it's like, man, I was halfway through that second bucket and I was like, oh, okay. Like I'm bad. Like it just is what it is. But then you're like, okay, here it is. Here's that feel. But it is what it is. That's the life of a golfer. And that's why we were so passionate that we decided, hey, it'd be a good idea. We're all entering midlife. Maybe it's a crisis adjacent. Let's start
Mhm.
a golf social media company. So let's
Is that what we
segue
are?
into that topic.
A golf social media company?
That's
Is that what we
I hope by the end of this we can actually answer ourselves of what it is, right? It's kind of it's you can't it's alternative golf media. Okay, let's do one lecture session here. That
Okay.
wraps up everything of the last 7-8 years. This goes from your no laying ups and your fried eggs all the way to your good goods and your Bob Does Sports, the YouTube golf world. It's this new ecosystem, right? Of legitimate legacy money in the game of golf is shifting away from the professional game and going to this alternative golf space where the
Yeah.
content's more interesting, the content's more creative. And we said, well, fuck, give me a little bit of that action. Now, we consume it, right? We love golf. We've
Yeah.
loved it for ever and a day. And I've loved consuming kind of all facets of that alternative golf ecosystem. But we felt like something was maybe missing that didn't represent directly us, the plight
Well,
of the middle-aged white male. Nothing out there just represents me in the game of golf.
right, and we're a lot of things, but we're also Americans first,
We're
right? And
Americans first.
we're passionate about golf.
Speaking
Right.
new red
Look at
plug
that.
hats.
Look at
So
us. Look at us. We're reaching across the aisle. That's the point. But we're Americans first, and we're incredibly passionate about golf, and we know a hell of a lot about golf, and we're obsessed with golf. We're like, how do we get into the business of golf? And it's not even necessarily to make a dollar in the game of golf. That'd be interesting. We have our own reasons, and we'll get into that. But that's part of it. How do you bust into this business of golf? And one way in, obviously, is through social media. And just another interesting data point about our own reference points. I consume zero social media before we started this thing, right? And part of it, and the more I've gotten into understanding what was available out there, I mean, I listen to podcasts for sure, no laying up, etc. There isn't that much interesting out there, and it kind of validated a point that you've always had. Just stuff's a little, I don't know, it's just not conveying the level of passion, the level of humor. I mean, we're just constantly cracking up on the golf course, having the best time.
I think
yeah.
So like you said, I want to peel back that one part. So we're going to dive into some details of the history and how we got here today, because at some point, I think we've gone back and forth of like, how different can you be? Like you're in golf and we're not 20. So we're not going to be out there spinning the wheel, playing shirtless and slapping dicks for YouTube clicks, but slapping dicks for YouTube clicks.
Fucking amazing.
Okay, yeah, there's a trailer.
I think by next year we'll be slapping dicks for YouTube.
Yeah, by next year we're not opposed to it.
Trademark.
But on the flip side, there is like this high end offering that's either covering explicitly the professional game or this very niche, pretentious piece of golf, and they do it great. But like we're this weird hybrid in between where it's like, hey, we appreciate conversations of architecture and history, and we like the pro game, but we also are just like normal dudes, and some of it's a little bit too stuffy. The short form content was just like so lazy, and we were just like, it's just this algo driven reposting of the same thing over and over. Oh, it's the same Tiger clip from 50 years ago. Oh, it's the same. Can you believe it? Like as it's the first time. So we're like, there's got to be a way. However,
can you remember your however? Because
Yeah,
I'm just gonna say, and that is one of the first theories we tested, and one of our simplest ideas is, we knew we could make better shorts than anyone, and we think we have.
Yeah,
we really do. So go check out any of our pages. I mean, on a daily basis, we release at least 2 a day. We've been doing that for almost.
I am more than confident. I will die on the sword that this might all just amount to nothing, but there's nobody who has put in the effort and or has actually executed the percentage of hitters on short form golf content than Please Let Us Golf.
Or who can take something boring, a shot, and actually make it relatively entertaining for a second.
And because we have to, right? We're kind of diving into the midway point, but guys, here's the thing about us. We are career professionals. We are fathers of young children. That's part of the core of what kind of bonded us through golf and travel and going out and doing these things. I mean, Aaron and I are also cousins. But we, going through that, lost my train of thought a little bit there, but
Right.
what you're just going for a little sipski. So okay, so what do we got? You know, going through all that, it's like, hey, we don't have the like we're not out filming a match 3
Mhm.
times a week. This is not a full-time gig. So we have to be like hyper optimized with our time and efficient with, hey, if we're going on a golf trip for 3 days, we have to be able to splice this thing to make it look like we're everywhere all the time too, because that's part of the social media dopamine hit you're getting, whether you want to admit it or not. When you're looking at those pages, you're like, okay, I want to see my golf action for the day, and it's like, oh, that's a lot of pressure when you're trying to scale, and like that's not literally what we're doing as a full-time gig.
Yeah.
But any closing thoughts on that before I want to reorient back to the beginning and then work our way into some of these details.
No, go to the however,
Yeah,
comma, back to
yeah,
the beginning.
however, comma, and I don't want to say too, like this is seriously inside baseball stuff because we're gonna uncover some things that you need to know about. Like some of this, I don't need to go after anybody specifically. Maybe we will take a couple pot shots at some easy targets, but
Mhm.
you don't realize that the content you're consuming, whether you like it or not, most of this shit is VC, like venture capital owned at this point or bought. There is like conglomerates that there's like 2 of them that own almost all of the really sports social media, but specific to golf. There's really not any organic outlets besides a couple of like individual IG page type guys where it's just like one dude going to sling 50-yard cuts at a mountain course. And like if you're into that, that's great. No hate to them. But for us, that's not really something overly interesting at scale. So if anything, whether you give a shit about Please Let Us Golf or not, we hope you do, and we hope you listen to this and you understand our journey. But I hope you also have a conversation about like what are you consuming and why are you consuming it? I think that's maybe it's a little bit too deep for a golf podcast, but like you're kind of feeding the beast of some things you might not think you're feeding too.
Damn right.
But okay, so Please Let Us Golf. Look, we started going on serious golf trips like 2017. We lived on different parts of the country, you and I. Two of
Mhm.
the other guys, Adam, Jewel, not here tonight. They're more local, closer to me. But we really we had golf one time in our life before that. You lived on the West Coast. I lived on the East Coast. That magical trip to Pebble we've covered before in 2017 because you were living out about 30 minutes from Monterey. That fast track into 2019, went to Kiowa Island on a blowout trip, got you to come down to the East Coast. But really, it all led to a 4-year from 2019 through 2023 of us being like, man, we should do a pod. Man, we should
Yeah.
start a page. Man, we should do that. And it was just teasing this idea forever. But like, we're busy.
Mhm.
You already had kids. Then I started having kids. Um, and you get to the point where it's like, you don't have time already. You're not trying to do a business necessarily out of it. So how do you even justify doing it? But at the flip side, we were spending so much time in our group text threads, our planning of our trips, our after action reports, our talking about golf. What did we do that week? Can you believe the TGL? Can you believe? So I was like, well, all we have to do is figure out how to document it. And boy, was I naive to say all you have to do is figure out how to document it. But that led us to this moment when we went to Bandon Dunes and we were sitting there 22. And then we went again in 23. But the key moment was that moment at Sheep Ranch to me. We had some tough weather. The weather broke.
Was it the 4th hole? Those
It, yeah,
the
that
hook
when we
shots?
yeah, and we just yeah, it was, and we started we're playing. It's 35-mile-per-hour wind, but it's not a cloud in the sky. You're at the most majestic piece of property to play golf at in the United States, um, and we're
We
just
we needed
my
we needed it too. It's not like we're Navy SEALs and just went
no.
through hell on earth, but damn, we did, man. We were at Bandon Dunes for what, 2.5 days of absolute like terror on the golf course, just
a
sleet
a
and rain.
atmospheric river that
I,
stayed on the property.
I didn't even have my rain pants for the first friggin' round. I lost a pair of golf shoes after the first round. We're friggin' desperately trying to dry clothes between rounds. I mean, my back went out. It was absolutely miserable. And it was like the 3rd day, and we heard that like the sun is gonna break. At Sheep Ranch, there's still like a tea time open at like 2.
Yeah.
And we're like, holy shit. When we rushed over there and we heard because we had played it once and 100% fog. You couldn't even see the place.
Yeah.
And we go out there, and it was like, it was 4 or 5 of us, and just walking down that first fairway, like, into the sun, and just going, "Oh my god. Like,
And,
where are we?"
when we were progressing through that round, I was just I'm kind of an observer by nature, and I just saw the joy and the happiness. And you hear these things, "Oh, this is a bucket list trip," but then you're talking to guys there and they're there, "Oh, we go every year." Now I know, like, there's a whole nother
Yeah.
conversation about means, but it did open up my eyes to like, "Oh, this is possible." And not only is it possible, like, I kinda wanna anchor these as, like, core events of my life. Like, these are the outside of, "Okay, we're gonna table the wife, family, kids piece." Outside of that, there's nothing I would rather do than be at that place with a close group of people. And it's like, well, I'd also like to share it and share it in a non-frivolous way. Not
Mhm.
just, here's a clickbait. Are you jealous that I'm at Pack Dunes? Or are you jealous I'm at Old Barnwell? Um, but in a real way of like, how can we introduce this in a, hey, I don't need to show you a drone footage. All the drone footage looks the same. I don't need to just show you a selfie that I was there. How do we like try to bring you there into moments and like you experience it how you and your buddies experience it? Sometimes maybe that is just, hey, it's a good shot. It's just a serious golf shot. Sometimes
Mhm.
we got guys tripping and falling over. You got guys hitting hosel rockets. It's like the real world of golf. So you like that moment, and then you fast forward. We got to return there in 23, and we had multiple moments like that. And we finally were just like, we're gonna do this now. Then what? Saying you're gonna do it and then actually starting it is like, you know, exponential. It's like,
Right.
the idea is here, and then actually doing it is like 550,000% higher.
Yeah, but and part of what I wanna talk about too, back up just a second, is, like, when we started finally golfing together, it's like I'd golfed my whole life. I've always been good, it's fine, I played in some tournaments, and I always had friends that golfed, but, like, it almost felt like you still had to do, like, real you still have to do your real life, and then, like, you can golf a little bit, and never take golf too seriously, and always, like, keep it in the back of your head. But I started hanging out with you, and I'm like, "This guy's fucking nuts." Like, he only talks about golf, and he's absolutely obsessed, and he's somehow, like, created a life structure that allows for this too. His wife gets it, and understands it, and that's how it goes, and his family around him, and I'm like, "This is, like, it was really inspiring in a certain way." And I think it's not just that, it, like, allowed me to kind of unleash myself and be almost a little more of myself and own it a little more and go, I am, like, I'm obsessed with this thing. I wanna own it a little more. I want to identify with it a little more. I wanna take it a little more seriously, and part of this project too is kind of allowing us to take what we do a little more seriously, validate it a little bit, just give it some weight in our lives. And I wonder if that ends up kind of inspiring other people to kind of think of it the same way. And
No, preach,
not
dude.
to right? And not to
Yeah,
rope in the name already, but the "Please let us golf," it's kinda like it's the mantra. It's like, this is all we
yeah.
want. It's like a cry to the universe, and I just wonder if it can be something that a lot of people can kinda relate to.
So yeah, like that's a great segue into December 2023. Um, it was one of those times where I was golfing with Adam. He hit the OG logo. Where if you're a real one, you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about. Adam was golfing. He hit threaded a shot through the trees, and I took a picture. And like when you isolated the image, I was like, it looked like a pretty cool logo. And I was like, guys, we got a logo. We're gonna do this. And everyone's like, ha ha, yeah, that's cool. And I was like, no, we're gonna do this. I'm gonna create a bunch of social media pages. And then I was like, oh, I did them with just like dummy names. We were
No,
doing
you
like,
remember our first
yeah, I think
name.
we were
Well,
doing. I think you should golf. Was that
I
the
think you
first
should
thing?
golf.
I think you
Right.
should golf. Obviously, there's some legal ramifications there, and it's probably not scalable. We put some dummy names out there just to be like, I'm going to create pages. Nothing's going to get posted. But we're just going to create them, and we're going to put a logo on there. And we're just going to look at it and be like, we got pages with a logo.
Yeah.
Um, and then we started like as December went on of like, let's just do baby steps. Let's come up with a name. We're brainstorming. Here's the dirty secret one. Pro tips. If you want to start a golf business, a golf social media company, a golf YouTube golf, anything, any pun you can think of that's creative, that you think is witty in golf is taken. It's taken by somebody in Delaware with an indoor simulator studio. I don't give a shit what it is. It is taken. The URL is taken. It's probably trademarked, and somebody is doing it. There's been a charity golf event with that
Yeah.
on. I mean
Impossible to be
everything.
original.
You're talking about some of the most creative people on planet Earth, and we went through thousands. There's not shit. And then you text me out of the blue, and it just said, "Please let us golf." And I was like, "What?" And you're like, "We should probably just call it Please Let Us Golf." And it was just this aha moment of, because all we're doing, this whole thing we're doing as the dads with careers, and you're trying to prioritize golf without sacrificing being a great dad and a good husband,
Yeah.
and figuring this all out from scratch. We're literally asking the world to please let us golf. We're asking our careers, we're asking our spouses, our families, we're asking private courses, let us out. We're asking the Bandon Dunes of the 2 years of waiting list of, yeah, just please let us golf.
It has to, and it's deferential, and it is that way on purpose, because that's just kind of how it has to work for guys like us. And I think there's a hell of a lot of them, like you said, the working stiffs with the wives and the kids, and the families and the obligations. It's not the rich kid life with the no obligations, and it's not
Yeah.
just the pro golfer thing, which people can't relate to either. Or the guys trying to be college. It's like the real golfers and
Yep.
what they have to do to set up a world that allows them to put this much time, effort, dedication, money,
Mhm.
like, into this crazy ass game. But like, anyway, so
No,
hell yeah,
no.
we're pleading.
So boom. So now we got Please Let Us Golf. The pages have been changed. We got a little
Yeah.
silhouette Adam out there, which we knew we would eventually have to change, but it was something to, to get us going. But then basically the first of the year rolls around, right? And as we have these pages, we're not posting anything, and I'm the analytical type A. I'm like, okay, we are going to do this. We're gonna get on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, and we're gonna go do at 9 a.m. and da 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 da. And like, okay, and then you start actually going to support that level of content output. What do you need, like, in reserves to be able to even harvest and start to be creative and all those things? But B, there was this other issue of like, oh, we don't even know how to do it. Like, we don't know how to edit. We don't know, like,
Well,
we're discovering, like, in terms of like, oh, there's CapCut, there's Mojo, there's what were some of the other ones we're using?
we've
I
had
mean,
some experience in some things, but
yes,
correct, we
yes,
still, yeah.
yeah. So we were kind of, I don't want to say we bit off more than we could chew, but we are probably a
I
little
did used to
naive
run
into
a different social media empire on Facebook, but it
the.
was slightly different.
It was a little different than a daily organic golf content. So then that led us down to like, okay, we want to start putting things out there, but how do we balance like differentiation without being cringe? And like, it's kind of hard to not be a little cringe because you're putting yourself out there, no matter how
Ugh.
much you try to preserve your anonymity or whatever it is. I might have just slurred that word, so you can kill me on that.
Yeah, and for
You're
the
putting
record,
your
I couldn't have done this 20 years ago. I couldn't have done it in my 20s. It is weird putting yourself out there, and you kind of have to
yeah.
just be at a point where you just don't give a shit anymore. And I'm definitely there, luckily.
Yeah,
Uh
I don't think I'm at the point where I can honestly say I don't give a shit, but I'm at the point where I
Close.
gave enough, not enough shits to say, I'm gonna do it. Because I know I have a career, and I know that it's impossible to keep those things separate, and then you're gonna start getting, and most people have been kind about it, but you just start getting inquiries and questions, and you're just don't want to. You're like, hey, this is, like, you just try to get off the page quickly of
Mm.
having those conversations. So yeah, that's one thing that I didn't really forecast as a complexity, but I would say the number one thing is, like, when you're deciding, again, you have this YouTube golf world, which is Gen Z dominated, with them and Bob Does Sports. Basically, they're like the only non-Gen Z representatives in that space, but it's more slapsticky. It's not really about golf that we know, like, actually, like, getting deep into the game. It's more about the characters that they play, and
Hmm.
that's a model, and that's obviously huge, and that's fine too. But then we also were like, hey, we're not going to have a $500,000 production budget to go toe for toe with the, high end, snooty and professional content creators up there. So it goes back to like, what are we? What are we trying to do? And our first stab at it is like, let's just do short form content and figure out how to make like really interesting and funny clips. And how did that work? Well, the good news is I've always loved videography with the phone. Everyone yelled at me for years on our trips. You don't got to record these shots and these pictures. Well, those shots and pictures floated like 6 months of Please Let Us Golf. And you had quite a few from your trips and your golf as well. But what was crazy is you start putting it out there and you forget, like, it's like editor syndrome. You know all these things, but you have to remind yourself no one else in the world does. So it's like, it didn't matter that it was 2019 or 2020. The person viewing it's like, oh, you're at Keo Island. That's sick. And you're like, okay, yeah, that is sick. I was there at some point in time, and that's really all that matters. So that was a weird thing for me of like, I wanted it to be organic, but I'm not trying to fleece someone, but also that's just the name of the game. Like, you are banking content for months and sometimes years in advance to be able to harvest it and optimize it in these specific windows. And we'll get into optimization in a second, but my first big lesson learned is, guys, respect the creators a little bit, because it's a big level of effort to put out even the short form clips. It's an insane amount of effort, especially if you're not doing it as a full-time job. Did you struggle with any of that early effort?
It's definitely gotten a lot easier. That's for sure.
Yeah, now, yeah, but that, because you were learning like on the fly as you go. And but it was kind of fun because you were naive, and like you'd get like 400 views and you'd be like, oh my God, this is sick. And then, it's just like that dopamine hit. But then you go like, oh, well, does any of that matter?
You're right. You're right. And see, part of how our personalities are a little different, our brains are a little different, is you were probably thinking this way from the start, right? Yeah. I'm a little more present. And all I was really ever trying to do is make you laugh. That's my goal. So I'm thinking it's just like I'm making a video or I'm taking a swing and then I'm adding something funny to, whether it's an overlay of something or the way it's edited, and trying to make our crew laugh, because that's what we've been doing for years. Text messaging, making stupid videos, making stupid shit on Photoshop, right? Just cracking each other. And I mean, like, so much texting. If people actually knew, they'd be like, what the hell is wrong with you guys, potentially?
Well, we talked about just releasing, like, hey, nobody said any slurs or any of that. Like, let's just release 4 years of the text thread and just be like, and maybe it'll go viral.
100%. But like, that's why, like, we'll have a 15-second video that to us is 4 layers deep with these inside jokes between us. And we're thinking like, shit, if we were just relatively popular and had a following that understood this, like they'd be in this shit up, because we think we're pretty creative, pretty interesting. But going back a step, it was always just about, it was kind of like doing what we've been doing for a while, but a little more obviously on the regular and a little more professionally, in a sense that we actually had to create a product that we're putting out there. Right. So that's for sure. But it definitely started kind of fun. It didn't start like, oh shit, how do we do this? At least for me, it didn't. I felt like it was really more in the middle where it got to be like, you hit walls at certain points. But
I think so. To your point of my personality is, I had nothing but extreme anxiety from the beginning. But you are right. Like, it's all relative to that point you're living in, because you're kind of naive to what you're biting off on, or attempting to bite off. But it certainly was fun, and that was kind of our prerequisite of like, hey, we have to we have to laugh at.
Well, how do you create content for a YouTube account with 7 followers where your son's number 8, and that's funny? And I remember that moment, or he was 22 actually. But it's like,
it's the wild, guys. I
have to like it, otherwise.
If we clip anything, I want to clip this part. It is impossible to be motivated and start. When we did a TikTok and Instagram and a YouTube, and we basically started posting at the end of January into early February. So, and oh, by the way, milestone, we're now organically driven. We're not, paying for followers. We're not a paid entity. And, we're over 1,000 on all those platforms. And on one hand, I say it and I'm like, still feel yucky and cringe. On the other hand, I'm like, you have no fucking idea how impossible it is to start at zero.
Mhm.
At zero. And us, and oh, by the way, 3 of the 4 of us didn't even use social media. So it's not like we baked in like, oh, all of you got 1,000 family member
No,
followers.
none of us
We
are
got
on it.
like we got like 4 family member followers to start. 2 on YouTube and 2 on Instagram and 0 on TikTok. Maybe 1 on TikTok. My dad's on TikTok, so thanks, Dad. But you just built it up from nothing, and you literally you go through these weird ebbs and flows of like, am I a psychopath? I just did this for 3 weeks for 6 people. Like, this is the dumbest thing in the world. But then something would happen. We'd have these like ones that you were like, man, I know that's good and it would do nothing. Then one I know that's good and it would do nothing. No, that's good, do nothing. Then that one, it's good, boom, it takes off. You get this like rush and of energy, and really what you're trying to do, it's like that Mr. Beast model. Like, you're really just trying to micro learn and make
Oh, we're
these
definitely on
get
the
a
beast
little
model.
like just make these little amendments, right? But also another hard lesson learned is you have to care enough to do it, but not care enough to actually care about the outcome of what you put out there. Because when you are starting out, the odds are 90+% of what you do is not going to return the level of effort you put into it. And it being good is completely immaterial. You are at the mercy of the algo, a push update, what you trying to learn when your optimized time windows are to post things. Your kid shit his pants when you were about to submit something and you forgot all that kind of stuff. You shit your pants and forgot, whatever. We're getting older.
Yeah.
And I think those are things that I've really had. We still struggle with it. We were talking about it on the phone earlier today of like, you try to be too cool for school of like, I don't care. I put it out there. I know it's good. It is what it is. Move on to the next thing. But also sometimes you're like, fuck, if I had 50,000 people right now, this thing would be goddamn humongous. I really truly
But
feel
it doesn't negate the first point though, so that's okay.
between I feel 25% of the stuff we've done, I could look in 5 years from now and be like, that I'm super proud of. Like, you have that cringe factor when you look back always of, oh, why'd I do that? But it's a lot of really interesting content, whether it's funny, whether it's insightful. It's different from things that
Just a
I get.
great use of music
Great,
and
yeah,
and
like,
cues and
and
editing
I think
tools.
that's another part of this that's hard is like we care about things that clearly the masses maybe don't. Like, just
Yeah.
feed them an unedited, grainy shot of a guy hitting a shot to 7 feet and his buddy like having an untucked shirt going like, oh, it's a golf shot, and then people that got 50,000 views. Okay, we're going to spruce it up when we're going to make sure that the music is timed perfectly. And we're going to make sure we're going to sit there and debate what the the best clip and the best song choice would be. And we're going to make sure if there's an overlay, and we probably went an overlay overkill at some point, and we got a
Mhm.
little wild and we've reined that
Yeah.
back in. But I think like learning that part of it to me of like, hey, you have to treat it like it's like just a task, but also it is tough when there's not a return. And we were dealing in the low numbers, right? So and I kind of fast forward into like what was our first breakthrough? Our first breakthrough was and unfortunately, I know you live out west, but the other myself and the other 2 guys, we got hosted at Old Barnwell in February of 2024, and we were a nothing burger. And I mean, we're still a nothing burger, but at least we're maturing a little bit. And we filmed the whole thing, kind of had no clue what I was doing. We didn't even know what to do with the footage, but I'm putting undue pressure on us because I'm like, guys, I went to everyone like everything big's coming March 1st. And Aaron, you were like, why? Like we don't even know what we're doing with this. But I was like, yeah, but I put the pressure on us to make that decision. So then I spent like literally probably 400 hours over the next 3 weeks trying to figure out what to do. But it did result in some really cool content. And we got some people in the golf space go, hey, this was good. Yeah, tag us actually in that. Like, thumbs up, guys. Good work. And to me, that was my first motivating factor of like, oh, I don't even know what I'm doing really on the long form editing piece, but we are able to kind of fake it a little bit. And then I was like, wait, maybe it's because we're not faking it. Maybe it's because we're actually gifted in other things we do and we're just applying it to our passion. So that was to me the first big breakthrough of like, hey guys, like this might not just be as frivolous and funny as you think. Like we don't want to lose that identity, but we maybe
Yeah,
can actually
dude.
do something with this.
You know, you're making me think. I was just saying, it's like the business of golf. It's this friggin' giant tower in the middle of Manhattan, and we just walk and we're like, just throw us in the mailroom. You know, we
Yeah.
just want to just give us the entry job. We
Yeah.
just want to start understanding how this shit works.
Yeah.
What's running through the pipes? Who's going to the floors? Who's interesting? Who's
Yeah.
not?
You know, we went to Old Barnwell and then we're planning out the year, right? Of okay, you were going to go to Chambers, we were going to go to Cabot Citrus
Mhm.
Farms, we were going to do a trip in the summer here. We had already a Wisconsin trip, then we were planning later in the year. And there was a lot of these big things, but we started rapidly figuring out like, hey, we're posting a couple times a day on Instagram, a couple times a day on TikTok, a couple times a day on YouTube. We're trying to crack the code on what's a longer form type of content you could start to scale. But I think I probably got over our skis a little bit, got a little overexcited from the old Barnwell, and had to take a breather. And then what you
Mhm.
found out in the world of golf, even though we live it, it's still niche, and you
Yeah.
have to be ready to pounce when if you're doing this stuff when like the world of golf is the all eyes are on, and that
Oh, so
first
like Masters week.
boom, Masters. That was the next big one. And we were
Mhm.
just sitting there, man. We're like, what are we going to do? Um, and it really started the Friday of that Masters. I was off work. I took off work. You were at the house. And I got into this fucking Zen state, dude. It's a cool place to be in. And you've probably done it. Like if you've played sports, you get into it sometimes. Maybe you do it if you were a nerd taking a test. I just started seeing the Masters like it was the Matrix. Every shot that was being executed, and a commentator saying this, I'm like, I could do something with that. I could do something with that. And before I knew it, we just accidentally made like, if you're not into I Think You Should Leave, maybe some of this is over your head. Not all of it was I Think You Should Leave, but we just started making these cuts. And I did the first couple, and I could tell it, boom, you were like, fuck this. I'm motivated. I'm jumping in the game. And we just spent the next 3 days doing like 4 or 5 like really crazy fun shorts, and they blew up. I mean, for us, they blew up. We had some of them getting into the 6 figures, and like, well, this went from like our highest viewed thing was like 2,500 on a reel, and then all of a sudden,
Let's just break this down a little more. Okay, you're hitting on one of our favorite things ever that we've been doing for years, or majors, right? So there's
mhm,
4 majors a year. There's a couple of interesting tournaments. We are locked in with our core group when these
mhm,
tournaments are happening. We're talking all day Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We're talking shit. We're making fun of people. We're photoshopping things. We're doing crazy stuff. Tons of references, etc. And it was like we look at what's on Instagram and TikTok, and we're like, this is effing pathetic. They'll
like it's
show a shot that whoever hit in like maybe a blurb, something funny. I'm like, there are 10 hilarious things we could do with this clip. And we realized, let's blow this up. And we started posting these things that were starting to explode.
yeah,
And we were like, holy shit, we could do this for a living. Like
yeah,
every tournament that comes on, we'll make some pros look cool. We'll friggin' talk shit about other pros, and we'll do everything we always do, and it'll be hilarious. But then we found out super quick that's not a scalable business model because the PGA Tour
it's,
sucks.
yeah. The
And
PGA Tour does not subscribe to the philosophy that like putting
not
eyes on their
Bryson's
product.
philosophy.
Yeah, not Bryson's. Gus and Nashville, they're cool with it. They do shot for shot. They let you rip their clips, do fun stuff with it.
Mhm.
They know that it's just driving more attention to the Masters, and
Yeah.
the PGA Tour doesn't give a shit. And they stuck. They put their hounds out on us. We had some content come out, and it wasn't even like a warning. It was Instagram page shut down. And go. Oh, you know, it was funny. When they shut it down, it wasn't even, it was like, I'm not going to get into all the details. It wasn't even on an event that they own. It was a player that they own, and they filed a third party rights claim, even though they didn't have television rights, that they had the rights to that player. And Instagram, there's no recourse. So it's like, you just have to eat it and get a week, your account shut down or whatever. And like, hey, look, we're not naive. I understand there's like copyright and all that stuff, but it's literally the last sports league that doesn't understand like letting creative people do fun stuff with your content is only net positive for your
they're
business.
pathetic and they're dying and they're probably gonna die. And a link up with Please
But
Let Us Golf.
you don't get contract. You don't get contract. No, literally, I literally
if
reached
we were
out
running
to,
that PGA Tour account, it'd be explosive.
I reached out to him via email, via all social platforms of like, hey, look, I know that there's a 0.0% chance of getting a response here, but do you realize like maybe you could just harness us and just unleash us and we would make a trillion times more interactions for you than anything you're ever going to produce through your shitty accounts as is. But so that was a lesson learned. So we got super excited during the Masters, and then we got super depressed when we figure out like we can't scale that. But not shortly after that, though, we had we had the logo come out. We did it kind of right before the Masters.
What about the bracket challenge?
Yeah, that actually, yeah, right before the Masters, the highest level of effort thing ever in the history of Instagram was the 60 round of or the March Madness golf logo bracket challenge, not done by some kind of like clickable thing. It was a reel for the round of 64 was 32 reels, and then it was 18 reels after that in the round of 36, and then so you know how a fucking bracket works. Insane level of effort, but dude, it caught on. It started getting traction, and it was like, why? Who is looking at this stuff? But it was an insane level of effort, and that really like catapulted us into the Masters week, and also it catapulted us into launching our own logo. Because while we were doing the golf bracket logo challenge, this wonderful man out of Canada, Golf Illustrated Design, let's give him a shout out, started following our stuff. I sent him a message. I was like, dude, are you like, I looked at your page, like you're doing like really interesting, like digital artwork in the world of golf. And he's like, yeah, most of it I'm just doing, I do it as a side business, but also like I just do it for fun and throw things out there. And we gave him some concepts. And Aaron, walk us through the concepts of like why Lettuce, what we're trying to get to, and how we came at where we came to.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it wasn't nuts, but for whatever reason, when we're texting,
no, make it seem like Oscar-worthy nuts.
Well, it's brilliant when we're texting around. Please let us golf. Naturally, you want to emoji it up. We just shorten our cadence. Please, that's the the please emoji, and it just kind of dawned on me as I'm typing it. Lettuce, damn, lettuce emoji, golf emoji, right? So we got hands, lettuce leaves, golf emoji, and we're like, now we're rocking and rolling. We've got something fun. You start coining lettuce heads. Now all our fans are called lettuce heads. We've got like basically, can we build a full brand before it has even started? And we believe we've done that. Just fully conceived, insane notion. And like you said before, we're looking around. Can you come up with an organic idea, a raw idea, something like that hasn't been done a million times over? And anything you come up with is at least you're going to find some evidence of something. But we somehow stumbled into a world of golf and lettuce where there was nothing out there.
It's the only thing that doesn't.
There's no lettuce invitational. There's no lettuce. There's just nothing. Nothing's been done. And maybe there's a reason, because it's absolutely, it's just people didn't realize how simple of a concept.
It is fun when the people do get I've seen a few in person get the aha moment of like, why lettuce? Yeah. And I'm like, and then when they get it, they're like, oh shit. Cool.
That is fun. I did show it to a friend the other day. He goes, is that a brain? And I was like, okay. Now he's English, so maybe it's a culture barrier.
They have green and black brains out there.
Yeah. But we friggin' just fell in love with the idea of it. And we had our man Jewel, who's a bit of an artist, started conjuring up this image of kind of like a cool artsy version of a lettuce leaf, like at the bottom of a flagstick or something, right? With this giant flagstick coming out of it. And so we had this cool idea that we had come up with when we threw it to this illustrator, who just came back. And we're not the kind of guys to micromanage an artist. We knew he would nail it, and he did fast. He threw two things at us. One looked like a racing sailboat. The other was perfect. So we still have it. We'll have a limited release.
Adam was trying to ride for that sailboat, and we're like, dude, what? It's a sailboat. Why?
Yeah.
No.
If it was like the America's Cup logo, that would work. That's a race, by the way. But Yeah, so now we're Please Let Us Golf. We're fully defined. We've got a fun brand. We've got all these like sub brand things we can do with it. Super cool logo.
Plug, please let us go. If you got
Please
plug, you got lettuce.
stay
We own
plugged.
lettuce now. Stay plugged. So like, and again, you have
And we have a fun
amongst
logo too. We care about. We just did the logo bracket challenge.
yeah.
We're just torching logos all over the place for being just like bot logos, clearly created by an algorithm. Like no style, no design. Like
Yeah,
just
everything
nothing interesting going on.
everything
Right?
very safe, very, symmetrical, all that
Uninspired.
kind of stuff. Yeah, it's and that'll ebb and flow. And look, I'm not going to sit here and fall on my sword and be like, we have created the greatest logo that's ever existed. But I just want to again put stomp like this isn't happening in anything you consume today. Like it's just not where there's like an organic creation with a homegrown name, with a meaning, with a proof of concept, with this desire to keep pushing that results in this. And as silly as that might sound to you, like I'm going to have this shit until I die. My kids are going to have this logo. I don't care, but it's going to be something that I fall on my sword of like, it means something to me. And I hope eventually it means something to other people of like, hey, you're going to, even these Zoomers out there obsessed with good right now, like you're going to get into the world of working and getting into the, having the family if you so choose. And it's like, hey, here's a dirty secret of all the content you consume. I did a little random sampling of like the top 40 individual influencers in golf. Would you
Mhm.
be shocked to know that one of them has a child? And I think like 4 or 5 are married. So it's just
Right.
like you could call that jealous. I just call it like they do them. Like they have they excel in what they do. It's just not anything relatable to what I think the
Well, and that's the
majority of
key
my
word,
golfers
relatable.
yeah, like it's I play in the Wednesday men's group with the guys that are rushing to get off work to get their round in or the weekend two-man tournaments that come up. And I think that's much more aligned to the general experience. And those guys travel, they'll go do their Myrtle travels and all that. But it's
Yeah.
cool when they go like, tell me something about you were at Aaron Hills like that. You can actually go do that. I'm like, yeah, you can go do it, man. It doesn't take where
Yeah,
I
but
tell you
now
straight out.
right, but really important. We can't go to Erin Hills once a month.
No,
We don't just get to hop on a friggin' private jet and go do whatever we want or take like
right.
everything is like very carefully baked into our lives and it all
Yeah.
makes sense and that's part of the relatability. But we're kind of showing people you can pull this shit off.
And I know there is an impact, Aaron. I'm not just saying it because I'm not going to throw it out there, but people I know that are in like my fourth and fifth tier relationships to me, all of a
Mhm.
sudden I see them start posting more golf stuff and they start tagging a couple, please let us golf things. You get a random
I'm
text
saying.
message. You get, a cousin's husband that gives you, they never really had a relationship with, starts texting you like, hey, I'm trying to set up this buddies trip, and I'm like,
Hey
this is what
man.
it's all about. That's what we're
People
trying to
want to be
do.
people want to be inspired. The
Yeah.
good guys are they're for the 20-year-olds.
Yeah.
And those fans, they're gonna get old one day, right? And
Yeah.
then maybe they'll be interested in plug.
Yeah.
But
Maybe
Tiger Woods is gone.
60. Yeah.
What's he
Tiger's,
doing these days? That's interesting.
he's just hurt. I did ask Adam a challenge question. Do you think Tiger is going to get through a season of TGL without one of his blue Instagram posts of announcing a season-ending injury
That's
that he just
hilarious.
couldn't quite get through it?
Yeah,
So yeah, okay. So we gone through the Masters, we've gone through the logo. You've now done Chambers, and we were ready to take a breath because we had a late April trip planned to Cabot Citrus Farms, and our whole plan was, hey, we're going to release this stuff like in June and July to have some stuff for the summer. But this motherfucker Jewel had to go off and get a hole in one on our first like bigger golf trip that we went on. And that was another accelerant, right? Of you didn't want to sit on it, probably rushed it out as too overzealous, but capture a damn hole. So like all these things are happening. It's like we start the
Mhm.
page, you got the name, we got the logo, we got old Barnwell says, hey, good job. You're going to Chambers. We kill the Masters. I mean, like I said, not frivolous, like hundreds. I mean, we almost clipped 1 million views in a 4-day window. And like for a page with like 200 followers at the time, wild ass shit. And then, you go into, okay, now we got a hole in one. And that, but the hole in one was a critical moment for me. You know why?
Yeah.
Because it told me there's no cheat codes to this. There is no like good gets a hole in one and we're sprinting down the fairway and now you have a bajillion followers. Because what you forget about good when that happened, they're already really big, just not big relative to what you think golf space is today. But then they were still like 6-figure follower type of page, right? Like this wasn't like your mom and pop hole in one, and it kind of foot stomped to me that no matter how big of something you think it is, it's just another thing on the journey. Whether that gives you a 1% growth or 4% growth, it's just a thing that occurred. And yeah, you make the most of it. You want to squeeze that lemon as much as you could, but it's not as big of a deal as you think. But
Right.
sick moment though.
Yeah, fun. I was on the other side of the country while it happened and trying to tell everyone to calm down. Not going to change our lives, but it was great. I was proud.
You were the first phone call. So if
Damn right.
that makes you feel better.
No, it
So
does.
and then that fast forward, like I want to stop there for a second. So I was
Intermission.
now looking at my notes here of not to get too far off the rails. So at this point, I would say you're kind of like in the May time frame, and I'm like, whoa, it was a shocking amount of time. Wasn't a massive financial commitment. We're doing this, we pay for our own golf, but we have to pay for apps where we do editing. You have to pay for software now to do a podcast, but whatever your all in cost, maybe $100 a month or whatever it might be. But time. And time is the only thing you're born richest at, and you get poorer every day. And it's a very hard calculus for me of I go all in. Like I have two speeds. I'm either all out or all in, and I've gone all in, but I really had to start honing in on the things that I was using my time for, because I was falling into the trap of getting away from our core, which was fun, travel, information, different. And I was doing some copycatter stuff of like, hey, let's do shot for shot at Cabot Citrus. And it was like, I respect the people that do that because it's an insane level of effort. The editing is not a joke, guys. Like it's now granted, most of them are big and have their own editors, but those ones that are kind of mid-tier and they're putting in probably 40 hours a week at least in the editing bay to make that churn happen. So it just wasn't practical. And to be frank, we all kind of came to the conclusion like, we don't really that's not the best way to showcase our personalities. And again, it was kind of cringe. It's like, man, we're late 30s now, early 40 for one of us. Like that's not our space. So let's get back to our bread and butter, which is our space of the craziest short form content. And then kind of lead us down to the path of like, okay, we need to get.
Can we just as well? The scoring thing and us, you're right, because we started trying to create this content like, hey, here's me playing 9 holes, here's what I shot, or here's you versus someone, and like, here's the match going down, and you realize like, I had this epiphany, and it took a while, but you're like, holy shit, like I barely care what my friends shoot. Like golf is so weirdly personal. It is like everyone in their own world tagging along with people they love or like, hopefully, right? And you're having this good time, but it really is about this thing you're doing amongst these other people. And that's why golf's such a crazy popular sport and amateurs all over the world are doing it. It's this thing you actually get to do and live, and it's your thing. And I'm like, I care about some pros, not even all the pros. I don't give a shit when I see Tom Brady playing golf on TV. I hate it actually. So why is anyone going to care about us, right? But what I want to go with that is it actually allowed me to stop caring about my own score as much, and that is one of the coolest effects of this company. This brand, just kind of this project, right? Is like redefining what golf means to me and what my game means to me and what's fun about the game, and much more about just hitting shots and capturing something and being in the moment. And if you make a birdie, great, and take a chance on something, and who cares if you make a double bogey. And I've realized in my real life of golf, I am making more birdies now, and crazier shit happens too, but I'm just not obsessed about score the same way. It's more about like the actual experience of golfing, which is supposed to be the whole point.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
for us,
100%. And I think for me too, like going through that, I went through the motions of like it zapped a little bit of my fun when I was trying to do some of the overt shot for shot stuff, because to be frank, like I'm going to be the overly responsible one. I'm worried about the audio and the this and the that. And I was like, but then again, like it just didn't feel like it was anything that we really wanted to do, but B, it wasn't scalable to the point of like, I'm not trying to go on YouTube and go compete with a weekly match with Bob Does Sports or whatever that might be. So then it goes back to the drawing board of, okay, what is the summer swing and beyond look like?
It wasn't fun.
Yeah, it wasn't fun. And that's really what this is. So here's another pro tip. If you're not getting any of that, it's like, hey, you're going to spend a lot of time. You better be hyper creative. You better be hyper disciplined. But if you're not having fun doing it, like you're dead in the water, right? And we fall into that trap of where we get morose on, something we're doing. And it's very easy to get demotivated if you're not liking what you're doing. So that goes to anything in life, really. But, so we had to get back to the drawing board of like, let's just go golf. And we don't have to have this crazy deliberate plan, because we've been doing this long enough now, well before Please Let Us Golf, when we were just guerrilla cell phoning. But then even trying to do it formally with Please Let Us Golf, we know what interesting golf is. Like we go to a tee box and go like, oh, this is sick. We need to capture some stuff here, right? Somebody's hanging off the fucking side of a cliff. Like you're going to get a phone out. You're going to plan a GoPro when somebody's got the eagle putt. You can create some really interesting context without having to make it a 2-hour production movie. And that's kind of where we netted out at. And I think we hit a sweet spot again and gave us a little more motivation through the summer. Also, a little motivation factor this summer, I ended up happenstance going to get tag along with Riggs from Foreplay through a total personal means. So I don't want to make it sound like Riggs like saw Please Let Us Golf. It was like, we got to get this guy to Whistling Straits. But I got hosted for the day at Whistling Straits. And like, that was another like just eye-opening kind of thing of like, oh, you kind of feel adjacent to the ecosystem and like what that life is. But it was also eye-opening for me again, even for Riggs. I'm not here to like take a shot at him. He's the nicest, like literally not just saying this, legitimately one of the nicest people I've ever been around. Totally fun day. He treated not just me, but just like genuinely treated. You could tell how people treat people. And oh, by the way, here's a dirty secret about him. He's smart as shit. That's the C. Everyone thinks, oh, that's Foreplay. I know people know he went to Harvard. You can tell a wit, and you could tell like you could bring up any topic and he could go like that with it. But I say all that to go also, we live on totally polar different spectrums of life, right? Like he is at a different place every single day, golfing, living it up, and the double trannies, and let's do it. And this is the sickest day ever. And like, that's just, again, that is another example of a model that isn't something we could pursue reasonably.
Not that we'd want to.
We'd want to either, right? It goes.
And it was funny. It was funny having this realization, like, oh, they know about Please Let Us Golf, and okay, it means nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it meant nothing, and it's another data point of like none of it matters, because the only thing that matters is consistently putting out good enough and interesting enough content forever. It's a commitment for life, and you just have to understand that like that's just how it's going to be. But yeah, that fast forwarded us into the summer, and we had some interesting rendezvous into our September big Wisconsin blowout. But we started laying the groundwork of like, okay, we were comfortable and out. We did enough kind of video potting over some golf videos of saying like, we want to launch a formal weekly podcast. Aaron, what a fucking creative idea. Who would think to launch a podcast? But why?
It's an up-and-coming industry.
Yeah. So from your perspective though, why did that fit cleanly into something we had to go do?
Just because Cousin Taylor hasn't been able to execute it consistently, so we need to do it.
We got a lot of fame.
Cousin Taylor.
We got a lot of fame in this family, guys.
We got lots of podcasters in this family.
My brother runs the most successful I don't. Is it? He runs some real
Is
legitimately
it a
super
sex toy
sig-
podcast or what kind
it's,
of toys?
he runs multiple podcasts and they're extremely
Oh yeah.
successful. I'll just leave it at that.
Oh,
So
he's a badass.
proud of Big Brother, and he helped me a lot of some of the landmines to avoid and getting up to speed on some more advanced editing and all that. So good big bro. But yeah, so like why did we need to lean into, okay, we're gonna launch a weekly podcast, the podcast?
It's like we always knew it, but we got away from it from the start on purpose. Way
We're
away from it. We weren't even thinking about it
because
for
that you want to
months.
talk about, you could kind of hide behind the short form content a little bit, but when you
Right.
start doing this, there's no hiding. Like you start getting a
Right.
lot of questions of, you do a podcast?
But it always had to be this way. It's our favorite, probably, content out there in general. I mean, lots of people love podcasts, like the
Yeah.
long form nature of it, the exploratory nature of it, just like the chillness of it, the humor of it.
Mhm.
And by the way, we're listening to golf podcasts, and we've got a couple we like,
Yeah.
and we've got ones that we like that you get bored of, and that's
Mhm.
just natural. That's how things go. And we see all these different spaces that maybe aren't being explored or aren't being explored enough or in
Mhm.
the way that we think we could do it. So it's like, fuck, we got to start, and we got to start figuring
Or
out how to
bought
do it.
takes even, right? Like bought
Yeah.
takes is an issue in this space, right? Like either people are too close to the professional game or bought by certain entities to where you gotta holster some of those raw opinions. So like that's another issue too.
Yeah, for sure. And that's like second, right? It's like shit. The first step was like, you think just because you think you can do something, like, all right, go try it. And not even the logistical aspects of it, but can you converse? Can you make something interesting? Can you figure out the topics that we're talking about? Can you make it
Yeah.
interesting? Can you put out shitty podcasts? Then
Yeah.
listen to it. Let people listen to it and go, what was that
Oh,
about? And it's
oh, it's
almost because if you don't do it bad, you'll never do it. That's this weird thing about life. It's like
it's
you
like
kind it's
stand
not
up.
sure.
Yeah.
Damn right. You have to earn it. Like we know that. So our goal is to earn this.
Yeah.
And I think we will. And the trick is going to be through consistency. And sometimes, like, I think I've written down 9 podcast ideas in the last day. Like somebody, you feel like I just have so much I feel like we can talk about
Yeah.
and go over. And that's a reaction to what we see that's not out there, and just kind of just daily what's going through our brains.
No, yeah,
Um,
it's that's it, man. I mean, it is, I had reservations doing it for the same things you pointed out. And mainly because I was like, there's no going back in terms of like your face and everything is intrinsically linked to everything you're doing comes full circle. Um, but also it's the only practical long form content for us. Like, right, if we did want to scale to something marketable and having more access and to be able to opine, right? Like we like
yeah.
these. I'm one of the smartest people I've ever met,
Yes.
and it's
Period.
people need to.
Was
You
that
got
it?
people to, yeah, that's it. And people need to hear my voice. No, and I mean all of the stuff. Talk about, okay, literally mechanics of launching a pod. It's the I know every time we post something, somebody's going to post like, "Oh, podcast equipment's too cheap." It's like, okay, fair enough. But the actual mechanics of it, of doing it, I'm not saying it's hard, but there is a level of effort. But it's the putting yourself out there, hearing yourself speak, hearing you enunciate, hearing you mispronounce a word you did not mean to say, hearing you miss a take that you wish you could have gone off. But the thing I'm proud of, normally I'm super hard on myself, but I'm actually really confident in how it's evolved in just a few months. Even like the comfort level of doing intros and getting into some of that piece of it. But I also know when I listen to it in 6 months from now, I'll probably be wanting to jump off the top of a
Yeah.
house.
It's gonna be bad.
But it's like a you talked earlier of like, well, getting back to like, what is plug? And it really is this kind of public social experiment for how do you organically, and maybe some other person out there does it in a different space, but in the golf world, I don't know of anybody with our backgrounds, our constraints, our philosophy, our creativity that is trying to package and put together organically from scratch a new alternative golf brand, media, whatever you want to call it. And it's a really interesting social experiment, if anything. But I
Mhm.
do think it's also an opportunity for people to like hey, if you can relate to any of that stuff, like we're gonna keep coming. We're gonna keep coming with cool topics. We got a lot of stuff that we're planning for 25 that's gonna be a little outside of the box. And hey, if you're into that stuff, I think it's gonna be pretty cool shit.
Hell yeah. I mean, check this out.
Okay, let's
I
check it
mean,
out. Well, let me
we're,
narrate for
we're-
anybody listening. Aaron is checking something out.
I think we're gonna have a podcast coming out about swing thoughts.
Okay.
The swing thoughts are nuts.
Yeah.
Everyone's got them.
Mm-hmm.
Had some of the like. It's just
Different
sort of
opinions
absurd.
on them from coaches.
Correct.
Some of them are like, you can have one, you can do this. Yeah.
It's absurd what goes through a golfer's mind. I mean, that's
Mm-hmm.
something we want to talk about. Obviously, we wanted to. I thought a really interesting topic is the value of having a home course and being able to play the same place consistently. It doesn't mean you have to be a member somewhere, but golf, there are way too many variables that are constantly changing. And can you have anything that's a little bit constant that you can learn around? Right. And it just kind of dawned on me, because when you become the kind of person who's bumped anyway, I mean, I'm looking at a list of 100 different things. What makes a great course? Why you don't need a caddy? We have a major caddy exploration coming. We have deep thoughts about caddies, not just professional, more importantly, but the caddy scam that has infiltrated amateur golf. But we take it seriously, and we know caddies, and we appreciate them for what they do in the professional game. Yeah, we've got
topics of that. Maybe trying to get into some myths about or maybe even stuff about like golf fitting and speed training, all these things. And again, I'm not saying all these topics have never been touched before, but I meant like just in a really raw, organic a way that I do think is different than anything else available today.
It's true. And there's a lot of people talking, so you have to ask yourself who's worth listening to, right?
Right.
And we just think we're coming from a place of just a hell of a lot of life experience and true like understanding of this game on an incredibly intimate level in every facet of it.
Yeah.
And then having, like you said, the professional careers and just kind of comedic proclivities. Is that a thing? I might have just threw two words together.
We got professional comedian in the family, and then everybody's family is got funny people. That is, I think, one of the jokes for Mr. Williamson is that he loves when people ask him who's the funniest person in his family.
That's right. I think we've got a lot of edges, but the point is we are constantly golfing. This is never going to change. We're constantly exploring badass golf courses. We're constantly trying to figure out what golf ball we should be playing.
Yeah.
When we need to buy new wedges. This is it. So we're going to be exploring this with you.
As highbrow as we'd like to think, we're still spending 50% of our time on what you just said of like, well, I got this new wedge in. I'm changing the ball because, I putted good with it.
We don't get to sample 10 new drivers at every, this is the real world. This is the real world, and value is key. And we definitely want to break that down as much as we can for people.
Yeah, I'm ready. I think I'm ready to go a little. I mentioned this at a recent pod too. I don't remember which one. I'm ready to go a little more comfortable on the nuclear side of these $300 to $500 rounds I have no issue paying that, but I have high expectations when that happens. And all this mansplaining for, the greens this time of year or this or that's like, nope. No. You don't get to do it anymore, man. Because there's a lot of great offerings that aren't that. And I kind of want to go through a journey the next couple of years of doing some of the less big stuff and doing some of this more, man, if you're in Washington State, here's a couple places that'll blow your socks off, man, that are better than these $500 rounds you're paying just because it's at some name brand associated, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, man, a lot more to come on that. But man, anything else on the journey of Plug and what the big golf social media alternative golf ecosystem looks like?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. Our bio these days is the most insightful and entertaining golf content on planet Earth.
Specifically planet Earth.
But we're thinking interdimensionally. But I mean, that's our point. We do want to be entertaining first, and we want to make that a goal because we find that golf lacks that in a certain way. So hopefully when we produce products you like listening to, you like watching. And that's why it's funny to show people outside of the context of a platform, a reel or a talk, because it's these like quick dopamine hits. And like
what?
the point is you're supposed to be having
you
fun
do
on
this. You do this like
right.
5 times a day. What?
Exactly. Oh, this 8 seconds of love. But that's the point. We kind of want you to be in your world, and then you get this hit from us. It's like, oh, that was nice. What else are these guys doing? Well, if you want to explore interesting topics with us, that's what we're doing. I'm hoping the podcast is where this all kind of really comes together, obviously, because it gives us the most room to breathe. And hopefully playing incredible courses, profiling more courses, meeting more of these owners and architects who want to have us out there so that, we can give them a fair shake and find out what's worth checking out.
No, for sure. I mean, that was one of the core missions. So we kind of didn't get into that detail, but I mean,
if you're a golf range charging $20 a bucket and half the balls are broken, we want to expose your ass. That's other shit we're doing.
Yeah, that's
you know
bullshit. There's some lazy asses out there too doing that nonsense. Yeah, kind of. So, man, I don't know a good way to capstone it other than like I think we pretty much comprehensively went through the journey of how we got here today. I hope those tidbits of like the inner workings of launching social media, trying to even infiltrate the golf space, of how difficult it is, especially when you are, again, not backed by some large entity like most of the things you consume are. And that's not shade up. Like, look, man, you'd be smiling if you got paid to be in the golf world and do this kind of stuff. I get that. But also I think over time, there's unintended consequences of that, and it creates gaps. So
even if the TGL buys us in a year, like we're gonna have a crazy. My wife's a badass attorney. We'll have plenty of carve outs. We'll still be talking shit. Disruption. I think that's a word I care about.
Yeah, got to disrupt it. But yeah, man. So this one's ran. I'm sure it's a little dense subject matter expert for some, but I do think like, dude, like this shit you guys got to know. Not just about us, but just about. It's a pretty wild, like what you pick up this phone and you got the Instagram notification. What could be happening? We got some followers. Let me go. Let's get that dopamine. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, there is a lot that goes into feeding your little For You page. When you scroll up and you get it curated and that algo knows everything about you, you're putting that input into the algo. So it's like, it is very interesting when you learn how all of that works and you start to see it in action. And we are taking advantage, like you start looking at those optimization, not just trends, but times and fonts and all this kind of stuff that I roll my eyes at, but still go, but it does matter. So, we're going to still keep,
what matters is the golf.
And that's
right.
Look, the Aaron keeping us on track of
what matters is the grind. And like, we don't know shit. We've been here almost a year now.
Yeah.
We hit 1,000 followers on all our platforms. We did hit our goals. I mean, maybe we set modest goals, but we hit them. We're going to set some bigger goals, and we're here to stay. But isn't it interesting to see behind the curtain and like who's up to this stuff? Yeah. You've got an incredibly authentic, raw, like mission that was just built in a lifetime of living this life of being a real human being, but also being an adamant golfer, and an obsessed golfer, and someone who truly loves the game and wants that to come through. So I can't wait to see what this is like in a year.
Man, I can't come on top of that. That was a pretty good monologue.
Don't come on top of that.
I would hate to do that all over it. But all right, as always, appreciate it. Hope you like that deep dive. That was fun. That'll be cathartic for me to listen back to. Hopefully, maybe some lessons learned on how to improve.
That was for you, Mom.
Yeah, I love you, Dad. But now, as always, stick with us weekly. Every Tuesday, you are getting the pod drop. Every day, you're getting some kind of short drop. Awesome stuff. YouTube, Talk, Instagram. We're going to keep it coming. Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
Truth Social.
Hard. Truth, all the above, baby. But all right, as always, stay plugged. Is that how I'm struggling getting to the end here? Of
Peace out, lettuce heads.
just peace out, lettuce heads and plugs. Stay plugged.
Stay plugged, planet Earth.
Lettuce heads plugged. Quit saying fried egg. No offense to fried egg, but when your ball is embedded in a bunker, it's plugged. So stay
plugged from now on.
Plugged. Comment, like, subscribe.
Start laying up.
That was good. Start laying up is good.